CSS Grid is the most powerful layout system in CSS. Think of a grid like graph paper. It's made up of lines, cells, and tracks. The vertical lines are column lines, the horizontal lines are row lines, the spaces between them, those are the cells. And when you combine multiple cells in a row or column, those form tracks. It's all about positioning items between these invisible lines. Let's start simple. In our HTML, we will create a container and a few items. Then in our CSS, we will make the container have display grid. Nothing happens yet because grid needs a structure. We have to define how many rows and columns it should have. We use two key properties, grid template columns and grid template rows. Each value you add creates a track. Now we've got a 3x3 grid. Each 100 by 100 pixel square is a cell. Every item can be placed exactly where you want it, using line numbers. Like here, for example, that means start at row line 1, end at row line 3. Start at column line 1, end at column line 3. Item 1 now spans 2 rows and 2 columns. And instead of writing 4 long properties, we use the shorthand grid row and grid column. Or even better, one property, grid area. Grid area is like a magic one-liner. It takes 4 values, row start, row end, column end. And yes, you can use negative numbers to count from the end. -1 means the very last line. Before grid, stacking elements on top of each other meant absolute positioning. Now it's as easy as overlapping your grid coordinates. Want item 2 to sit on top of item 1? Just position it in the same grid area and give it this. Done. Instant layering. Okay, what happens if you add more items than your grid defines? If your grid runs out of defined spaces, CSS Grid will automatically create new tracks for you. These etc. rows or columns are called implicit tracks. Let's see it in action. Here, we added an etc. item, and in the CSS, we have the container with these styles. We've defined 2 rows and 2 columns. That's room for only 4 cells. But look what happens when we add a 5th item. The browser automatically adds a new row below. That's the implicit grid. A grid that Grid itself creates for you when you exceed the explicit layout. But notice something weird. The new row is smaller than others. That's because implicit rows don't inherit your grid template rows values. You can fix that using grid auto rows. Now every automatically created row will be 100 pixels tall, matching the others. And it works the same way for columns too, if you switch direction. Now instead of adding new rows, Grid will add new columns to the right. Now let's talk about the FR unit. You will see this one a lot, the fractional unit written as FR. It represents a fraction of the available space. For example, that's 4 equal parts, and the middle one takes 2 of them. Resize the window and they stay proportional. Sometimes you want flexibility, but with limits. That's where min-max comes in. Here, for example, that middle column grows, but never gets smaller than 200 pixels. No more broken layouts on smaller screens. The repeat function. Repeat lets you define how many times a track size should be repeated. It takes 2 arguments, the number of repetitions and the size of each track. For example, here, that's exactly the same as before, 3 rows and 3 columns of 100 pixels each. But now it's cleaner and easier to edit. And it's not just for fixed sizes, you can mix it with fractional units or even functions. For example, here that means 3 equal columns, each one taking up a fraction of the available space. In this example, that gives you 2 responsive columns, each one flexible but never smaller than 150 pixels. So basically, Repeat is about making your grid definitions simpler, cleaner, and more dynamic. To add spacing between grid cells, use gap. Or get fancy and you can add gaps to rows and columns at the same time. No need for margins anymore. Now let's talk about something super readable, grid template areas. Let's start with some basic HTML. Now in the CSS, we can literally describe our layout inside the CSS using grid template areas. Each set of codes represent a row, and each word inside those codes represent a column. So what this means is, the first row has header spanning both columns. The second row has main on the left and sidebar on the right. The third row has footer spanning both columns. It's like drawing your grid in text form. Now all we need to do is to tell each grid item which area it belongs to. This is perfect for layouts like websites or dashboards. Grid gives you total control over alignment, both inside the grid and for the grid itself. Inside the grid, we can use justify items for horizontal alignment, and you can use align items for vertical alignment. To position the whole grid, you can do the same, but instead of items, we use content. What about responsive grid with no media queries? You can actually do that by just writing this line here. Now the grid automatically adds or removes columns as the screen resizes. And that's it, a layout system that's both logical and powerful. Once you understand how lines, tracks, and area works, you can build any layout you can imagine. If this video helped you to understand grid, hit that subscribe button for more CSS tutorials, and I will see you in the next one.